Hi and welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Chapter 11 bankruptcies. So let's get started. What is a Chapter 11 bankruptcy? Chapter 11 bankruptcy is known as the reorganization bankruptcy, and it is generally utilized by businesses in order to continue operating while they restructure and reorganize their debts in order to be either more profitable or in order to ensure that they can remain in business while they are figuring out their debts. Who files for Chapter 11? Well, for the most part, businesses are the ones that file for Chapter 11 because it allows them to maintain ownership and operations of their business while they restructure their debts and come out with a plan in order to settle them. But it can also apply to certain individuals if they supersede the income limits or the assets limit, etc. of a Chapter 13. A Chapter 11 allows them to reorganize their debts and create a debt repayment plan in order to get out of it more financially stable or secure. Generally, these individuals have a complex financial picture. In some cases, they have multiple businesses tied to them, etc. And so they would better benefit from a Chapter 11 instead of a Chapter 13. What happens in a Chapter 11? So the person or the business files a petition with the court in order to start the process. So this filing includes their debt, their income, the company or their individual assets, and a rough proposal of the idea that they were looking into to better reorganize and keep operations running. So once filed, there is an automatic stay, very similar to the other types of bankruptcies, where the creditors will have to stop calling the business owner in regards to collecting those debts until the process, legal proceedings, is through. This bankruptcy is special in the sense that it allows businesses to continue operating while they go through this process instead of forcing their business to shut down and close down immediately before settling their debts. So while the business owner remains technically the ones that operate the business, they do so under court supervision, and that is to make sure they don't go into further debt again while they are trying to reorganize. Now, a reorganization plan is then proposed, and this generally includes a negotiation process with the creditors in order to lessen the amount of whatever they owe. In some cases, it's to change the terms, making their debts longer or a change of interest, etc. And when they have a proposal, they have what's called a creditor vote, in which they try to get the majority of the creditors to agree to the plan before then showing it to the judge of the bankruptcy case. In larger, more complex cases, then there is a creditor committee that is built and created in order to better allow for reorganization if there are multiple parties involved when it comes to the types of debts, etc. for that business or individual. Then comes the confirmation hearing, and this is where the plan for reorganization that had the majority of creditors agree to is then sent to the judge in order to confirm that this is suitable in the sense that it meets all legal obligations, that the creditors are getting a fair deal from doing this type of reorganization, and to see that there is the ability to stick to this plan and therefore prevent further bankruptcies down the line if possible. Once the plan is approved, then the debtor is set to start the plan. This is known as the repayment period, and that is again following the plan out, and in most cases it means that certain loans are paid on a certain time frame or for a certain fixed amount of money, etc. And that depends on the creditors and what they agree to when they propose this plan. So after the plan is fulfilled, then the bankruptcy is considered closed and the business is welcome to continue their businesses as running as usual after they have settled the debts that they had originally filed bankruptcy on. What type of debt restructuring is potentially possible on a Chapter 11? Secured debt. So businesses might be able to negotiate with the creditors on the loans that are applicable to the debts that are secured. So think on office equipment that they have or on mortgages for commercial buildings, etc. They may be able to negotiate a lower payment or a different interest rate, etc. Next is for unsecured debt. So thinking loans that aren't secured by collateral Or for credit cards, they may be able to agree to a longer repayment term, or in some cases, they will have only a portion of their debts be eligible, and then the rest the creditors will agree to discharge, and discharge means that they are no longer responsible for paying. What impact does a Chapter 11 have on credit scores? So a Chapter 11 bankruptcy can affect the credit score of the business, or it can affect the credit score of the individual, and sometimes both, dependent on how their debts were structured. And this is really also dependent on how they pay off those debts, whether or not there was a full discharge, a partial discharge, etc. But in general, all bankruptcies have a negative impact. It's just, it is a little bit lesser of an impact, at least duration wise, when there is a plan to repay. What are the benefits of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy? One is that it potentially can avoid liquidations, meaning that these businesses are able to continue running their business without necessarily losing assets that are necessary for running their business, and it also could potentially help save some employees' jobs. Negotiating debt. Because this is a type of restructuring, there is the possibility that they can negotiate their debt and not have to pay the full amount or change the terms to be better for them. So that is one pro or benefit to a Chapter 11. A second chance. So in some cases, this is a way for them to kind of wipe their slate clean and be in a better financial position at the end of the bankruptcy, which then can potentially allow them to continue operating for a longer amount of time. Lastly is that they can continue to control their operations. So by filing this type of bankruptcy, they can remain in control instead of like selling off their company to another individual or another business. So what are the cons to a Chapter 11 bankruptcy? One is they can be quite costly. So dependent on the amount of time and the amount of time in negotiations, there may be settlement fees, admin fees, etc. that can add to the cost of continuing this type of bankruptcy. Complex and time-consuming. So because you are moving a lot of individual pieces around in order to come up with a plan that is beneficial, it can take some time, and that can be a factor that makes it unsuitable in some scenarios. Lastly is uncertainty. It is entirely possible that a plan just never gets fully approved, and so there's no guarantee that a restructuring plan is going to be successful or approved by the courts. What are some alternatives to a Chapter 11 bankruptcy? One is a Chapter 7, which includes the liquidation of assets, and this is something that businesses and individuals alike have the option of doing. Out of court debt restructurings or negotiations. So instead of going through a legal process, you individually call your creditors in order to come up with terms that are beneficial to both parties instead of going down this potentially costly and legal route. Debt counseling or a business counselor who will then give you more insights on the total picture of your scenario and come up with ways in order for you to either lower your operational expenses or potentially get you in connections with loans that you may be able to qualify for or do like debt consolidation, etc. How long does a Chapter 11 bankruptcy take? So unfortunately, I can't really answer this question because these cases generally tend to take a long time. It also can depend on how long of repayment term you guys agree to. So if there is a case that you agree to paying off a debt in 10 years, well, then the bankruptcy technically kind of lasts those full 10 years until you are successful in finishing out the plan that you agree to. So it can take a couple of years, and it also depends on just how many debts does the business have, as well as what is the income of your business, to see if maybe you get a bump in, sales, etc. certain times of the year, and you're better able to tackle your debts or not. Again, there's a lot of factors. So of course, before filing for a Chapter 11, I will reiterate that it is important to hire a bankruptcy attorney, and for businesses, they may have also additional people to help you out, like tax lawyers, etc., as well as contacting your accountant to see whether or not you have the position financially to even afford doing a repayment plan, if that is an option with how your business is currently being run. So yeah, that's the basics around a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I hope you found this video helpful. Please give it a like and share it with a friend. If you have any questions or you want to say hi, drop a comment down below. For those of you who are subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in again. And for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you found it helpful. My channel covers personal finance topics as well as my own personal debt story. So if you find those type of videos helpful or interesting, then I hope you consider subscribing. And until the next one, I hope you have a good one. Bye.